Hello everyone, I'm Zahid from Talks at Innovation Valley, and today we have very amazing guest Shaadi Valadkhani, who is Senior Managing Consultant AI and Analytics at IBM. I'm so happy that we have today with us Shadi because she is so passionate and interested in the topic we are going to discuss today. Our today's topic is AI and future of work and education. So first of all, I really warm welcome you to the show, Shadi.
Thank you, Zahid. Thanks so much. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about this today.
You're welcome. So, Shadi, before we move to the topic in questions, I and my audience would love to know your story from where you got education, when you started your professional journey, and how you got to the IBM, and how was all that journey, what challenges you faced, and how you overcome those challenges.
Sure. So about 11 years ago, when I decided, or just over 11, it would have been 15 years ago when I decided on what it is that I want to study, right? I think every kind of teenager, when you're at school, you face this question of what it is that I would like to do. And I always enjoyed maths. And because I always enjoyed maths, I was just curious about other subjects that could complement it well. And that's when I, kind of looked into computer science. And I thought, computer science and maths could probably go quite well together. And I was like, it'd be very cool to be able to write code and, get programs to work and learn a little bit about, the architecture and how that all functions. And so I studied at Queen Mary, University of London. And at the time, as you can imagine, there weren't many kind of women within the computer science space. There were a lot more women in the mathematics space, but it didn't really cause any issues as such. It was actually interesting to kind of observe that, just to see what the dynamic is like within that world. So I already started to experience, I suppose, this male dominated industry from when I entered university. And I really enjoyed my computer science modules. I feel like I actually thrived more in them than my maths modules. Um, and I think, since then I started looking into where is it that I want to take my career. And I think there are some people in their lives, they know from a very young age exactly what it is that they want to do, and that's never been me. I would say even at this age, I'm not 100% certain on this exactly the path I want to go down. And I think that's okay, because that invites the opportunity to try new things and experiment and kind of, stay open to different opportunities and see where that takes you. So when I started at IBM, I started on a very technical kind of career path. So I was a programmer, looking at building websites for large UK retailers. And then very quickly after that, I noticed that I actually don't want to be coding all day. It's not my forte. It's not what I'm best at. I can see that there are other people that are really good at coding, but it's just not for me. And so I thought, could I find a middle ground between understanding the technology, but then also working more on the people side with people, with clients. So, this natural nature of consulting felt like a natural path for me. And so, since then I tried different projects, different technologies, and then back in end of 2015, it was I started to embark in this world of AI. And I've, had the great opportunity to work in different continents. I've worked in Australia for a couple of years on different projects, again in the AI and analytics space, and worked kind of across different industries. So, for me, it's kind of been discovering what it is that I really enjoy as I go along and being open to new opportunities that seem to have worked really well for me. So now I'm a senior managing consultant at IBM. And a lot of the work that I do is working with clients to figure out how to utilize technology to help solve their business problems. And, that could be AI, that could be something else, but it's looking at how to utilize that data and harness it for, business and people benefits.
All right, amazing journey, Shadi. Shadi, can you briefly explain the concept of AI and its significance in the context of the future of work and education?
Sure. So artificial intelligence is a technology, and it's a technology that can like mimic human behavior or human intelligence. So like understanding or reasoning or learning, for example. Um, and I suppose the reason I'm really excited to talk about it here today is because I know there's different perceptions and viewpoints around the technology and what it means. And I'm hoping that in this conversation, we can help demystify some of that for some people and maybe even help create a better relationship with AI and technology. Because I do see it as a huge opportunity for us to expand how we learn, how we work, and ultimately how we live our lives. Maybe it will even evolve how we love and how we follow our passions and interests and dreams. Um, so I think what's really important to think about when discussing the context of AI within the future of work and education, it is important to look back just a little bit as well to say we have been using AI in work and education for many years now. So examples of where it's being used in the workplace is in customer and employee experiences like financial forecasting to help with predictions and getting faster insights. In education, again, with like digital assistants to help respond to queries and to help make personalized learning recommendations. And also in everyday life, if we just take a step back from work and education, if you've ever watched something on Netflix and you've been recommended it, that recommendation system is using AI technologies, and so is Amazon with the product recommendations that it's giving you. So I think it's important to understand we have been using this technology for a while, and now it's starting to evolve. And we can talk a little bit about, because what the things that I just mentioned are a bit more traditional AI. And now what I'm sure you've been seeing and the world has been seeing in this newer kind of generative AI space over the last 7-8 months that has really taken off. It's really opened up a new paradigm for us and a new way of new ways of working, living, and learning as well.
All right. Shadi, how is AI expected to impact the future of work and education? Especially, what are the key areas where AI can bring significant changes,
Yeah,
especially the learning side and the teaching side?
sure. So as I mentioned, the some of the traditional AI use cases that we were looking at, it was a bit more predictive, a bit more deterministic. Um, Now with the rise of these kind of foundation models and being able to generate content, it's opened up new doors for us. And I think everyone now can kind of see the power of what you can do with it. So when we're looking at kind of education, learning, and then also I would say also with work, for me I think there's three paradigms or like three themes, and for me those are knowledge. So I think when we talk about knowledge, we're talking about information and data that is harnessed within an organization or like a financial institute for a certain industry sector, whatever it may be. um, AI is going to enable us to make that information accessible to all of us and to be able to query it in a human-like form where we can gain that information, data, and knowledge to help us to learn, to educate ourselves, to educate others around us, and also help us to do our work more. So I think access to knowledge is kind of one of the biggest things. The second thing I would say is creativity. So now with the rise of generative AI, where you can actually create, human-like art or emails or letters or videos, images, even PowerPoint presentations, which will impact, a lot of what consultants do as well in terms of daily work, or even storytelling or story writing. I think that's another key element around creativity, and we can talk about this a little bit more. But I've been seeing examples of where utilizing that generative AI to help, students and children to become more creative by working with the technology, I think that's going to be a massive, massive shift. And then the last one for me, I feel, is connection. So connection, perhaps, with each other, with our colleagues, with our peers, with our clients, even with family and friends, and maybe also the way that we do connect with the technology as well. I feel like our relationships will also have a bit of an impact because of the way that this technology will enable us to, follow our passions. Hopefully, I'm a bit of an optimist, as you can probably tell, but I feel that the AI will help us to focus on passions and interests within the context of what we're learning and in the context of what we will do with that learning future on, which will create that future workforce. So for me, it's these three very high level themes: knowledge, creativity, and education, connection.
All right. Uh, See, yes, there are very exciting things happening nowadays in the name of AI and generative AI, and yeah, but the question is how education and corporate sector can apply AI to enhance the learning experience of individuals,
Mhm.
especially in the form of systems and processes.
Yeah, so if we maybe talk about education first, so there's actually a TED talk that I watched very recently by Sal Khan, who created the Khan Academy. Not sure if you've heard of him, but they're experimenting a lot with like personal tutors, personal teaching assistants. So, having a personal tutor for a student whereby you can interact with a chatbot, let's say, that's powered by AI, that will help them to write creative stories, or that will help them with maths equations. And when I say helping, the examples that were being shown are things like, this probably doesn't look right, but let me try and help you with how you can actually come up with that conclusion or come up with the right answer. So, having that personalized tutor kind of, changes the way that perhaps teachers may be, teaching certain subject areas, the way that the kids will, do their homework. And there's a lot around, like there's this coaching element. So I think that's going to kind of change the game for education, and, the creativity kind of comes out of that as well. Um, from a business perspective, I think that there's a lot of focus around efficiencies, so gaining efficiencies and productivity in the workplace. So a couple of examples of that is looking at automating certain processes, whether that's employee like HR processes, to enable employees to, if it's booking holidays or making queries, being able to automate those things that are quite high volume and transactional as well, so that people can self-serve. So I think self-serving is kind of one of the biggest things which kind of the digital era has also introduced. But with AI, you can look at automating that end-to-end process and doing it in a human-like form. And then also looking at it from a client perspective as well. So how do businesses talk to clients, whether they're kind of end consumers or other businesses? It's also looking at how do you automate those interactions that again are high volume and can be serviced by AI, and should be as well. Because there's also a question of, should you be using AI for all of these things? So that's kind of, I guess, a couple of examples around how that can change and be embedded into the education and the business world.
Right. Shadi, if I narrow down your answer, so I will ask that, especially when we talk on the productivity and efficiency side in the workplaces, what are some of the AI applications that can enhance productivity and efficiency in the workplace?
Yeah, so one of the common kind of areas that I work in is around conversational AI. So, creating virtual assistants and digital assistants to help people with their work, or to help them automate a certain process. So, a virtual assistant can help you with trying to find information that you need for your job. So, let's say if you're a contact center agent and you might be spending a few hours on the phone with a customer for certain things like an insurance claim or whatever it might be, some of those processes can be made more efficient by enhancing the knowledge that the agent has access to. So with AI, you'll be able to query, documentation, or you can do it through a virtual assistant, or its intelligent search capabilities to, ask a question as if you're asking someone sitting next to you, and then you have access to vast amounts of data and information and insights. So, leveraging and surfacing those insights about, a specific customer or a specific product, or for a particular given industry or sector, whatever the type of work it is that you may be doing, that can help make the workforce more efficient. And then if we kind of take it out of maybe the context of the corporate world, if you look at things like the way, you've got ATMs and, machines replacing like cashiers and stuff like that, those types of things also utilize AI in different ways, but they also try to make, the way that those businesses are working and helping people to move more efficiently in a physical place as well. So yeah, those I would say are a couple of examples.
All right. So, I think with the rise of automation and AI, there are some concerns about job displacements. How can organizations and individuals prepare for this shift in the future of work? There is a fear, a lot of fear because of AI.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I think it is a very sensitive issue as well. I've never lost a job due to technology, so I can't fully understand how somebody must feel if they were to go through that. I can only imagine that it's horrible. Um, there's a couple of things that I suppose I think about. So one thing is I do look back to see what the world was like before and what technologies have come in and essentially replace some jobs. And a couple of examples, we used to have people sitting at switchboards for the switchboard operators for telephones, and we had lift operators as well to help kind of manage and operate the lifts. Those have been replaced by technology, and I think sometimes when you're in the moment, it is very difficult to see, but maybe zooming, forward, fast forwarding 50, 60, 70 years time, we're going to look back and there's going to be some jobs today where we'll be like, oh, wow, do you remember when we had people doing those things? You don't really have people manually entering, data as much anymore, whereas back in the day that was all being done manually, and now a lot of that is automated. So sometimes I feel, taking a step back to look back to say this is kind of natural in terms of the way that the world is moving and different technologies coming into place. That's one thing I think about. And then the other thing that I think about, and a lot of the work that I do with my clients, is looking at how do you augment the type of work that people are doing as opposed to fully replacing. Because there are some jobs that probably will be redundant in 50, 60 years time, but there are some jobs where human and machine can work, really, really well together. Looking at things like teaching, to teachers, I don't think will ever go away. You need teachers, and giving them the technology to help them make the learnings more personal to students, for example. That's a really good example of machine and humans working together. And it also allows, for the jobs that might be becoming redundant in the future, it allows people to maybe upskill in different types of skills and exploring different parts of the business or different industries. And it gives people an opportunity to, perhaps, pivot in their careers or try different things. I know personally, I have to constantly keep up to date on things that are happening to ensure that I remain relevant myself as well. Because, one day you could say there could be a digital advisor that replaces the advice that I give, right? So it's constantly trying to think about how do I, innovate, or how do I stay up to date and learn these different skill sets. And I think today, as you'll know, there's vast amounts of education online. So for those who are lucky enough and privileged enough to be able to access that type of content and material, um, there's so much out there for people to learn, and we can get a bit more creative with the type of work that we want to do.
All right. Shadi, what role can AI play in reskilling and upskilling the workforce to meet the demands of the future job market?
Yes. So I think there's two angles of this for me. I think one is we can utilize AI in schools in such a way where you can make learning very personal or personalized to that student. So, I mean, I'm sure you've had like passions when you were a child, or things that you were really interested in, whether it's like music, dance, or science, or whatever it might be. I imagine a world where children are encouraged to hold on to those passions and embed those interests into how they learn. So, I'm sure you've had exercises given to you as a child. Tom had 5 oranges, Sally had, 6 apples, and then you do a subtraction or a minus. But what if, you could create that in the context of, music, where Tom has 3 guitars, Sally has 3 drums. I don't know, something like that, that makes it a little bit more engaging for people, and it touches the young hearts and minds of the kids. The reason that I mention this is because I feel that by doing that, that's just one example, right? But to be able to harness those passions within learning and the education system from a very young age, it will, first of all, create that relationship with AI. So kids will be learning also about AI and how it works through these tools. So they'll be learning those skill sets as they grow. And I think that it would also open up a future where people will be a lot happier in their careers and their choice and the pursuit that they've taken, because it's kind of been part of their lives from the very beginning. So I think, utilizing AI first of all to actually teach, but then also embedding AI courses. And as we know, in schools, they've already started to embed a lot of like AI foundational courses and teachings for children. So I think that's kind of the starting point, is teaching people how to use the AI, but then also making AI a part of their lives so they can see the benefits of that. And then, of course, in the workforce, it's around encouraging that continued learning even when you're an adult. Because, for me, for example, I'm constantly learning. And at IBM, we're always told to, be kept up to date, constantly reinvent ourselves, and to keep upskilling ourselves. And I think leadership within these businesses need to embed that framework and way of working and mindset to say, we really want to invest in all of our employees' learnings and education, because it's not just good for business. It's good for retaining talent as well, because now in this day and age there's so much choice, and I think that teaching about AI and utilizing AI day to day so that we can build that better relationship and learn about how some of these work, and linking it all back to real benefits, whether that's financial or societal or people benefits, so people understand why this technology is being used. So I think it needs to be, in the learning curriculums in all schools, and also in all businesses as well. I think every single industry needs to have kind of AI education and learning.
Right, Shadi. When we talk on education, we listen something like personalized learning, personalized education, and customized learning. How do you really define the personalized learning, and how AI can help
Mm-hmm.
to make it possible? And one thing more, Until now, when we know about the education, there is a standard curriculum, and there is a standard syllabus.
Mm.
So, how do you see the personalized learning in contrast with the standard curriculum or syllabi?
Yeah. So I think in terms of kind of there's some standards and basics that are foundations to understanding how AI works. There's some, frameworks, methodologies, and principles that are going to be the same in terms of like the technology to understand what the technology is and how it works. So there's certain truths, like with maths, for example, there's just certain things that will be standardized. When it comes to personalization, to really um, be able to personalize any kind of experience, you need data. So you need data on the person. One thing could be like their interests, and the other thing could be historical data. So looking at subjects that have been studied before, what their results may have been in previous tests, um, where potentially you can see, like if the homework and the work that they do is also all digital, then you can kind of pick up patterns in the work that somebody does to say, here are some areas that I really think you need to focus on, or these are areas that I think you can improve on, or here's some extra reading on certain topics. So I think it's utilizing as much of the data that is possible based on kind of past exams or interactions or work or things that person has published. And then also combining it with, being a bit more proactive in terms of asking and embedding things that people want in their education. So if there's a certain, theme that a child might be interested in, whether it's like, dancing or certain shows or certain like historical characters that you can bring to life. If there's a child that's really into a certain era in time, you can bring that to life and maybe even bring some objects to life through AI. So I think it's a mixture of kind of interests and passions, and then using data and historical data of that specific person to make it more personal, and then to recommend what your next learning can be based on. I mean, we already have some of this stuff, for example, in IBM. So we have a learning platform where I'm constantly going on there to upskill myself, and it recommends learning based on like my CV and my profile and my job type.
All right. Shadi, when we talk on the implementations of AI, so what are some of the most common and biggest challenges and ethical considerations associated with the use of AI? Because there are a lot of concerns of the world. What are the most common, and how we could, overcome those challenges?
Yeah, this is a huge topic, and I'm sure you must have seen just over the past few days the first draft of the AI Act has been written for European law. So the European Parliament has written this kind of first draft, and I think throughout the next half of this year that's going to be finalised. So that's kind of the first attempt of actually trying to put some regulation in place. But maybe just to step back. So I think especially now with generative AI, because there's traditional AI risks, like kind of with any technology that you use, but now with this more powerful, I would say, and wider kind of ability that the generative AI has, is opened up other risks. And I think some of the major risks are, of course, you need data to train any model, so any AI model. So the first question is, where has that data come from? And is that data biased in any way? That's one of those things. And then can we even use that data to train the model? So with a lot of these things that are open source, utilizing, being able to find where exactly that data has come from, and whether it can be used, whether it's ethical, and it's been responsibly curated. That's the first thing. So there are everyone is putting their hands up and saying, we know this is an issue, we know it's a risk, and we're trying to get better at it. So being everyone's being very open about this. And then different companies are also creating their own models utilizing data that they can trust, knowing exactly where it's come from, it's traceable, and it's kind of being scanned for things that probably shouldn't be going into the model for wider use. So there's the data aspect. Then there is the question of the actual applicability and the use. So people are worried about what some people might do with this technology, how it's going to be used, how it's going to collect and retain data that where it's interacting with customers or just kind of day-to-day citizens. And this is where the regulators are kind of, they need to play a bit of catch up, but it is happening slowly and surely. To say what are our safeguards that we need to put in place? What are the guardrails that will ensure that we are, there are a set of values, I think, like globally, that we can agree on to say we need to be using AI for good. And then exactly what that means, these are all the things that need to be articulated. And that is in motion at the moment. So to kind of, this first draft of the AI Act, and I'm sure there will be more regulation is going to come in, and there's going to be regulation, I guess, also at a, more of a country level as well, because if we think about how we operate in terms of different countries, we do have slightly different values, right? We're very diverse. So I think there's going to be localized laws as well in terms of how to use some of this technology. But I think what this is demonstrating is, us coming together to say, we know there are some big risks, around the data, the traceability, whether it's responsible, whether it's ethical. And then we need to put, some kind of scope around what we can and cannot use it for, or what we should, use it for, and putting certain processes in place. But I think this will enable us to come together a bit more to kind of align on what are our universal values that we want to put in. And then I think, different regions or different countries will also come up with their own, own versions that's a bit more customized to local laws. Yeah. And I think those are probably, some of the biggest things.
Right. Shadi, are there any specific AI initiatives or projects that IBM is working on to address the future of work and education? Or can you provide some examples?
So we do have a platform called AI in a Higher Education. So, IBM has kind of been collaborating with academic institutes for over 100 years, I think. And they've been looking at how can we, embed, the research and the learnings and the tools and products that we have, into universities to give people access to, free education as well, and also to collaborate on a number of different initiatives. One of the projects that I know about, because I don't work heavily in kind of the education space, is we built an advisor for students that were looking to apply to certain universities. And that kind of helped them with the decision-making process around, how do I apply? What are the things that I need to provide? There's a lot of frequently asked questions they might want to ask, professors. So that was, what one of the projects, and there's a lot of collaboration happening, with research and different institutes to look at, going back to kind of the ethics and responsible side of things, is looking at how do we ensure that we're putting those guardrails in place, and what are the benchmarks that we're thinking about in terms of, performance and security and risk, to enable people to utilize this technology moving forward. Because, let's be honest, we don't know what all the use cases are going to be. We don't know how exactly all of this stuff is going to be used. I think if we speak again this time next year, a lot of things will have changed.
Um, Shadi, how can AI and analytics can be used to improve decision-making processes in the workplace and educational institutions?
For decision making?
Yeah, analytics for the decision-making.
Yeah. So, AI has, and data has been used for predictions. So, maybe looking at trend analysis. That's like a big one. So I mean, that can be within any type of domain. So maybe you want to analyze the trends of what customers are saying or what employees are saying about certain products, services that you provide. And then that can help determine what you invest in. That can help determine, potentially the path, the trajectory for certain products you might be building or services that you might be wanting to create. So trend analysis is a big one, and then looking at kind of the financial side of things as well, determining to see what might be happening in certain parts of the year in different regions to help make decisions around, again, investments in where you might want to spend most of your time. And yeah, I think that will help a lot with all sorts of things. I am talking really broadly because there are so many different applications to this. And I think in the education system as well, it's the same. So again, it's utilizing the data for it to tell us, what if we look at the way that kind of the world is moving, what skill sets do we need? What types of skill sets are people asking for, or what are the things that people googling to learn and find out and educate themselves on? And it's using all of that data to say, okay, maybe we need to now build courses in this. We need to start upskilling people in this. I don't know if you've seen, but prompt engineering has now become something that's quite popular, which is all around the prompts that you type into things like ChatGPT. So the way that you articulate that and all the different parameters and things you need to think about, that is now a new skill that has become very, very hot. So I think it's utilizing the AI and the data that is underneath that to say, how should we be maybe planning for what we teach and courses that we put in place, and then also thinking about perhaps from a logistical perspective, where should we be, opening up new stores? Where should we be opening up new offices? Where should we be opening up different university campuses? There's a whole array of things, but I think, trend analysis and insight into behaviors and what people are asking can help with that process.
All right. Shadi, can you share any success stories or use cases? For example, is there any ed tech product that really makes you fascinate? I mean, that really fascinates you, and you are really excited about for any existing AI product that is doing great job in the domain of education and work. For example, you give example of AI chatbots. Sorry, Khan Academy. This is one example. Any more examples when we talk about the AI-based learning and education?
So I think I talk about virtual assistants because that's kind of one of the biggest areas that I've worked in and that I've seen. Other tools, I think for education, there's a number of kind of new platforms now being created to help with creating models for specific types of use cases. One of the things that we've recently launched at IBM that I think, if for those who have attended Think, which is kind of a global event that IBM hosts, we launched something called Watson X, which has there's different layers to it. But with Watson X, there's again a number of use cases that can be explored to look at querying or building models to help with querying data or summarization type use cases. I'm kind of thinking out loud here because I'm not specifically in the education, in the public sector. But I think there's a lot of capabilities within, platforms like Watson X where people can look at to say, how can I use maybe like a summarization capability, for example, to perhaps, summarize the performance of this student. Like, here are all of the things that they have learned this year, and here are all the scores they received. This is how they performed. You can use the AI to summarize that. And then also on the other side as well, students can also use that for their own thing. to kind of self-assess and see kind of how they're performing. Um, but yeah, I think the thing that I'm interested, in the most, and this kind of goes back to what I was talking about the Khan Academy when we're thinking about education, is the creativity aspect, because being able to give a child or a student, someone who's learning, anyone, a tool that can help them become more creative. So I've seen some tools where you can talk to chat and then create a story with the chat. So you put in one line, the chat puts in another line, and they kind of go back and forth. um, I think that's exciting because that will boost creativity for everyone, and anyone who's learning, and for anyone who has a particular interest in writing, for example. So for me, that's the most important thing: is how can we utilize these tools to become more creative. And every day there's like a plethora of tools coming out everywhere on how we can actually utilize this day to day.
All right. Shadi, what advice would you give to the individuals and organizations who are looking to embrace AI and adapt to the changing landscape of work and education?
It's a good question. I think from an organization perspective, the first thing that I would say is, why do you want to use AI and what do you want to use it for? I think that's the first thing, because AI is another technology. So it is a very transformational technology. Everyone is using it, everyone is talking about it. But the first thing is, why do I want to use it? And what do I want to use it for? Why would I not use something else? That's the first thing. Um, and then I think education within a business context is very important. So if AI, I mean, almost every organization is now using AI. But if you are going to utilize AI, you need to think about the people. What does this mean for the people? What's the relationship they're going to have with these technologies? How is it going to change their day to day? And what do they understand about it? So education and awareness being embedded into an organization is extremely important, especially now that there's, it's ever changing. So I think that's some of the key things. Um, from a personal level, I would say, be curious. I know it can be scary and I know it can be daunting, but we all have like this intrinsic inquisitiveness about us, trying to, there are certain things that we're really interested in to see how does that work, or, how can I use that? How can this actually make my life better, my working life better, or my learning life better? I would ask people to be open to the technologies. Now there's a bunch of tools online that you can go and look at. There's YouTube videos, there's so many things that are accessible to so many of us now, and even on like our mobile phones and various apps, is to explore it, be open to it. But be aware of also kind of the risks that AI can bring, and just educate yourself on it. If you're working somewhere where you're not seeing any sort of AI education or activity happening, maybe take that upon yourself to say, going to leadership teams and saying, we really should be learning about AI and what that means, because it is going to impact all of us, not just in the workplace, even at homes when we're speaking to various devices. I have a few devices at home, so I'm not going to say the names because then they will start to speak. So it's, yeah, be inquisitive and look into how can I use this personally for me, because I bet for any kind of use case or any type of interest or activity or work type, there is an AI solution that already exists or it's being worked on, and that's also another opportunity to identify new opportunities in that sense. So yes, it's a great opportunity to learn.
All right. So, Shadi, trust me, it was really deep and insightful conversation with you. In the last, I ask every guest that joined my podcast show, other than the topic, keeping in view your own journey all the life. either it's personal, professional, or social, whatever. What inspirational message you would like to give to all my audience, which are, university students, teachers, potential entrepreneurs, business community, and education community? Any message?
I think the thing that comes to mind is, bet on yourself and go for your dreams. And, I read a quote the other day which said, everything happens twice, once in your mind and once in reality. So if there's something you want to go for, or something you want to try, something you want to learn, or whatever it may be, think it and then go for it. Just go for it and make it happen, and have that belief and trust in yourself. Because that's a journey. That is a journey, I think, for everyone to kind of go on to kind of work on that, self-confidence and the inner strength and trust. But we can all tap into that, and that takes work. But I think, go for it. You can do it.
Shadi, thank you so much for joining my podcast show, and thank you for delivering such a great insights, tips, strategies, and a lot of things. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.